Welcome to Magic Tale World, where every story comes alive with wonder. Let's open the book and begin our adventure together.
Once upon a time, in a land filled with windmills and green fields, lived a poor miller. He had 3 sons, and when he passed away, he left them what little he owned. To his eldest son, he left the mill. To his middle son, he left his donkey, and to his youngest son, all he had left was his cat. The youngest son was very sad. "Oh dear," he sighed, sitting by the river. "My brothers can make a living with the mill and the donkey, but what am I to do with a cat? I suppose I'll have to eat him, and then I'll have nothing at all." Suddenly, to his great surprise, the cat sat up and spoke. "Do not worry, my master," said the cat in a clear, confident voice. "I am no ordinary cat. Just give me a pair of boots and a sack, and you will see that your fortune is not so bad as you think." The miller's son was so astonished to hear a cat speak that he decided to do as he was asked. He spent his last few coins on a fine pair of little leather boots and a sturdy sack. The cat pulled on the boots, which fit him perfectly. He slung the sack over his shoulder, gave his master a wink, and strode off into the woods with a swish of his tail. He was now Puss in Boots. Puss in Boots was not just a talking cat. He was a very clever cat. He went into a field, opened his sack, and placed some fresh lettuce and tasty bran inside. Then he lay down nearby and pretended to be asleep. Soon a plump young rabbit, tempted by the delicious smell, hopped right into the sack. Snappus! Puss in Boots pulled the strings tight and captured the rabbit. Proudly, he marched straight to the king's palace. "I bring a gift for His Majesty, the king," he announced to the royal guards. "From my master, the Honorable Marquis of Carabas." The cat had just made up this grand title for the miller's son. The king was delighted with the fine rabbit and asked Puss to thank his master. For the next few months, Puss in Boots continued this routine. He would catch partridges, quails, and other game, always presenting them to the king as a gift from the noble Marquis of Carabas. The king grew very fond of these presents and became quite curious about this mysterious Marquis. One day, Puss in Boots heard that the king and his daughter, the most beautiful princess in the world, were going for a ride along the river bank. He rushed back to his master. "Master, quick, do as I say, and your fortune is made. Go and bathe in the river at the spot I show you, and leave the rest to me." The miller's son, who had started to trust his clever cat, did exactly as he was told. As he was splashing in the water, the king's royal carriage came into view. Puss in Boots began to shout at the top of his lungs, "Help! Help! My master, the Marquis of Carabas, is drowning." The king heard the cries and recognized the cat who had brought him so many fine gifts. He immediately ordered his guards to rescue the Marquis. While the miller's son was being pulled from the river, Puss in Boots explained to the king that some thieves had stolen his master's clothes while he was bathing. Of course, Puss had actually hidden them himself behind a rock. The king, feeling sorry for the Marquis, ordered a magnificent suit of his own clothes to be brought for him. Dressed in these splendid garments, the miller's son looked so handsome and noble that the princess fell in love with him at first sight. The king equally impressed, invited him to join them in the carriage for the rest of their ride. As the carriage rolled on, the clever cat ran far ahead. He came across some farmers mowing a meadow. "Good people," he said with an air of authority, "the king is coming this way. If he asks you who owns this meadow, you must say it belongs to the Marquis. If you don't, you will be chopped into tiny pieces." The frightened farmers quickly agreed. When the king's carriage passed by, he leaned out and asked, "To whom does this beautiful meadow belong?" "To the Marquis of Carabas, your majesty," they all replied in unison. The king was very impressed with the Marquis's vast lands. Puss in Boots ran ahead again and came to a field of golden wheat. He told the reapers the same thing with the same threat. And so, when the king asked, they too said the fields belonged to the Marquis of The cat did this over and over with every field and forest they passed. The king became more and more amazed by the wealth of this supposed Marquis. Finally, Puss in Boots arrived at a huge, magnificent castle. This castle belonged to a grumpy and powerful ogre, who was the true owner of all the lands the king had just seen. Puss in Boots bravely knocked on the castle door. When the ogre appeared, Puss bowed deeply and said, "I have heard, sir, that you are a great magician and can change yourself into any creature you wish. I've been told you can become a lion or an elephant." "That is true," boomed the ogre, pleased with the compliment. And to prove it, he immediately transformed into a roaring lion. Puss in Boots was so terrified he scrambled up the curtains to escape the sharp claws. Once the ogre changed back, Puss climbed down, pretending to be impressed but still a little shaky. "That was amazing," he said. "But I have also heard that you can change into the smallest of animals, like a mouse. Frankly, I find that impossible to believe." "Impossible!" roared the ogre, his pride wounded. "Watch this." And in an instant, the giant ogre transformed into a tiny mouse, scurrying across the floor. This was the moment Puss in Boots had been waiting for. He pounced on the mouse and gobbled it up in one bite. And just like that, the powerful ogre was gone. Just then, the king's carriage arrived at the castle gate. Puss in Boots ran out to meet them. "Welcome, your majesty," he announced with a grand bow, "to the castle of the Marquis of Carabas." The king was astounded. "What? This magnificent castle belongs to you as well, Marquis?" The miller's son, not knowing what to say, simply bowed and led the king and princess inside, where a grand feast, originally prepared for the ogre's friends, was waiting. The king was so utterly charmed by the young man's apparent wealth, a noble character, and seeing how much his daughter adored him, that he turned to the miller's son and said, "My dear Marquis, it would be an honor if you would become my son-in-law." The miller's son, now truly a Marquis, happily accepted. He and the beautiful princess were married that very same day. And what about Puss in Boots? He became a great lord himself and never had to chase mice again, except for his own amusement. He lived a life of luxury and comfort in the castle, always remembered as the cleverest and most loyal cat in the entire kingdom. And so, the poor miller's son, thanks to his resourceful cat, lived happily ever after. Thank you for listening to our story today. Don't forget to follow for more wonderful fairy tales.
Thank you for watching Magic Tale World. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more magical adventures tomorrow. See you next time!